Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Catholic Talk Show. This is a very special one. We're talking about Christmas today.
Yeah, in our special Christmas episode, we're going to look at what year was Jesus actually born in? What was the Star of Bethlehem? Where was Jesus born? And the origins of Christmas traditions.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
All right, really grateful you guys could join us for this episode, this very special episode. Super excited. Merry Christmas to you guys.
Merry Christmas.
Guys. Yeah.
And Merry Christmas to our viewers. We want to give a big thank you to the generosity that our patrons offers us every single month. But, you know, especially this time of Christmas where we're in the spirit of giving, we have a new tier opened up for Christmas this year. And we want to make sure that you're exploring how to get a very special gift from us to you on patreon.com/Catholic Talk Show. There you'll be able to see how you can support us and how we can send this gift to you. And a big shout out to all of our social media fans and followers on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And be sure to go visit our website. We have a nice little splash page for Christmas at www.catholictalkshow.com. And when you go there, you'll see everywhere that you can listen in or view us. And for our viewers on YouTube, be sure to click that subscribe and that bell, ding-a-ling-ling, so that you get
Silver
every
bells.
silver bells.
Silver bells.
Silver bells.
Blah, blah, blah.
It's Christmas time, so click the subscribe button.
Yeah.
Y'all are
Yeah.
crazy. Y'all Christmas
No,
crazy,
we're man. We're in
No,
a
I
good
love
mood.
this.
Yeah, so really, throughout this year, around Christmas, really grateful for everyone who's listened to us in the past year. And this episode is going to be a lot of fun. We're talking about Christmas, which is the most wonderful time of year.
It really is. It really is. And
Amen.
the reason for Christmas...
Besides Lent, the somber sacrifice of Lent, which I think is more wonderful, but another episode.
right there next to it.
Right there.
No, but Christmas is always a wonderful time of yes, family get-togethers. But even when you think about the church is packed and people are coming because it draws you to the celebration of the birth of Christ. And there is truly a special character to the feast day that we are celebrating and the festivities of the season. And entering into this time of reflecting on the person of Jesus Christ, who he is and how he came to us in the humility of the manger is really important. And to look at some of the specifics that we're going to share in the show can be very helpful for you to celebrate Christmas worthily and well.
That's right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, well, what is Christmas? Christmas is obviously the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. Now, we covered why Christmas is celebrated on December 25th, last year's episode. And I still contend that December 25th is the right day and the accurate day to celebrate Christ's birth. Now, that's the date. But what year was Jesus actually born in? Was Jesus born in the year 1? Or what year did Jesus and the Nativity actually happen? Now,
There's a lot of schools of thought out there
is.
regarding when Jesus was born. And I think maybe without thinking too much about it or kind of glazing over it, we would consider like, oh yeah, he was born at the turn of the
See, but there's a big issue. There is no turn. There's a whole year missing because of a basic calculation error by the Catholic monk who set the calendar, Dionysius Exiguus, Dennis the Short. There's no year 0. There should be, right? It doesn't just go from 1999 to 2001. There's a 2000, but we don't have a year 0 on the calendar. So that throws off the calculation.
It went straight to 1.
Went straight to 1. Went from 1 AD to, 1 BC to 1 AD. Well, where'd 0 go? There's a whole year missing. So, I mean, right there, fundamentally, that...
Well, 0 is not a number, so hey.
Well, 2000,
And
Right. 1
is the loneliest number.
Negative 1 day BC to
Right.
positive 1 day AD.
Right. So there's that kind of throws it off. Now, dating the actual year of the birth of Christ, almost every historian will use the gospel accounts, and most importantly, the thing that is kind of like the Rosetta Stone of figuring out this is the death of Herod. because we know that our Lord was born during the reign of Herod the Great, but Herod also died right around that time. And there's two very certain contenders for what year Herod died in, right? And pretty much all the biblical history, so it works back from the death of Herod. So when was Jesus crucified? When was his ministry? It kind of all goes back to Herod, because in those days, that's how time was kept, was in the 12th year of the reign of Tiberius or whatever, right? So
Good point.
Herod, there's two schools of thought that Herod either died in 1 BC or in 4 BC, right? So that would mean that Jesus had to have been born before he died. And most historians will say that Jesus was either born in the year 6 or 7 BC, which I think is pretty late, or the year Herod would have died in 1 BC, which would put the birth of Jesus in the year 2 BC. I'm of the thought that the year 2 BC makes more sense when you look at the reign of Pontius Pilate, 26 AD to 36 AD, and then you say, well, he's, not yet 40, the 3 years, that traditional 33. If you look at then 1 BC as the actual accurate year of his birth, that would go right in line with the year 33 and kind of falls in line with all the tradition. And I think it shows that Dionysius Exiguus, who set that year 1 BC or 1 AD as the year of the birth, was actually a lot closer than people give him credit for.
Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting.
You think so too?
I do.
I definitely think it's interesting.
Well, there's another account that places his birth even later, like AD, like 5 or 7 AD. I don't remember off the top of my head. Back from my studies in seminary, it gives you a scale like a shotgun blast. That there are dates in BC and dates in AD that try to narrow in on when Jesus died. But I think the time frame when what we're analyzing is Herod the Great during his period of time, it gives us that narrower sense of when it actually happened.
Right. And, in the Gospels, it says it was when Quirinius of Syria was doing his census, and historians have a hard time finding records of that. But according to most historians, Jesus would have been born, I think the majority think it's 6 BC. Just based on that's because then they're basing it that Herod died in 4 BC, so 2 years before. But I think there's also the school of thought that is moving towards that 1 BC date. So that's when Jesus was born. That was the first Christmas.
Bam.
So
Boom.
Black Friday in 1 BC, everyone was out shopping at Target and looking for those deals on the Lego sets and whatnot.
Okay.
I don't know what the shopping was like in first century Judea. I don't. So
It was a mad rush.
I'd imagine. Another cool thing, at the top of every Christmas tree is a star, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the Star of Bethlehem. That's what it represents. And looking at
Even on the nativity scenes, we had a beautiful little star on top of our nativity scene, and the little star, but oh, little Star of Bethlehem.
it's just such a joyful and
part of the whole
inspiring,
celebration. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
So what was the Star of Bethlehem? I mean, Gospels doesn't really say much about it, except that
it was bright.
It was bright.
Yeah.
It was a star.
But if we're trying to track when this actually occurred, I bet you astronomers have something to say about this.
I bet you they do. And I bet you Brian knows it.
I do.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a couple of contenders for what the Star of Bethlehem actually was. And most people say that because it was what the Magi were following, the Magi were probably astronomers / astrologers in the East, like in Persia, right? Or in Babylon. And they saw this astrological sign in the sky that would have meant that the king of Judea, a great king, was being born. So a couple contenders was that it was a confluence of stars of Venus and Jupiter in Leo, right?
Yeah.
That said, okay, there's this star formation that happens so infrequently that multiple planets lined up within like a single point in the sky and made this, to astrologers, a really rare occurrence.
It's so
it
fitting.
might not be a star. It might be a number of
planets lining up.
Aligning. And that would make so much sense, especially in regards to his birth, but then even considering his death, the solar eclipse of the sun. So it's like that sense of, like the planets and the universe and the cosmos reflecting this is a very important occurrence.
You can actually back into it if there was an eclipse of the sun. You can actually back into what that astrological formation would be.
When that year, that's true.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
That'd be a cool study to do.
People have done that actually, because you could take the known movement of the stars and the planets and where they appeared and then roll it back to certain dates just using computer software.
We need to bring somebody on the show that's like an expert. That'd be great.
They did that for Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Absolutely.
To discover the star formations on the tilma.
Right. And they did the same.
I love that study. I've read that.
They did the same thing for the Star of Bethlehem. They looked at what are some of these occurrences. So they looked at historical records of perhaps comets, right? In the Chinese records, there were some comets that were in the year 6, in the year 4 BC that are conjectured to have possibly been the Star of Bethlehem. But there's this one movie, and I think they did a really good job. It was called, what was it called? The Star of Bethlehem. Go figure.
Wow.
Creative titling. But
I may not be able to remember that. Can you say it again?
It was called The Star of Bethlehem. And what they did is they used this this modeling software and rolled back what the sky would have looked like during that time. And they also used Johannes Kepler's math to calculate a lot of the position of celestial objects. There's some real science going on. And that, according to this, that the Star of Bethlehem was a alignment of Jupiter in retrograde motion over Bethlehem on December 25th.
What's retrograde motion?
It means like, because there's
hits the point and then it tips to the other motion?
No, because there's a variance in the length of rotation of planets around the sun, right? So Earth will be going like this around the sun, and then a longer rotation kind of creates these shifts in axis. So it looks like a star goes this way and then stops and goes backward.
That's what I was trying to say, but not saying it right.
That's perfect. Wow.
Right. So, and then that lines up with the concept that Herod died in 1 BC, and then Jesus was born in 2 BC. He also picks that his birth would have happened on April 7th, possibly due to this another alignment of stars. So no one's really sure, but there's that documentary out there. It's pretty cool. I encourage everyone to go watch it.
I've never seen it. I've got to look at that. That's cool.
Let's see here. Now, I know you guys have both been here. Now, this is, so
the birthplace of Jesus.
That's it. You guys have both been
in the
there.
Milk Grotto as well, right around the corner.
Beautiful place.
It really
That's the
is.
Church of the Nativity. What's your experience being there?
Well, one, just the entrance is the most humble doorway in all churches in and around the world. You bow down and you literally hunch over and enter the church in a posture of humility, which I absolutely love. And then you walk through there. There's really not a lot of ornamentation. There's great simplicity, but the solemnity of the environment it's palatable. Like you feel it. I mean, you can sense it with all of your senses. And then the anticipation of coming to the place where everyone reverences in relationship to the birth of Christ is pretty powerful. Yeah. And having that moment, it's like time slows down and you have a moment of great an action of gratitude and an action of reverence. It was amazing for me. What about for you?
Well, you talk about the ornamentation. When I was there a year ago, they had discovered this highly they were restoring the church, if you will. And so
Nativity or the Holy Sepulchre?
No, in the Nativity. Okay. Yeah. They had, scalpels up, and they were basically doing something to the church they haven't done in centuries. And one of the things that they were doing with the floor is they were kind of buffing out this color, and they found these very ornamental floor coverings that were there. So I got to see some of that, and it appeared to me that they were actually uncovering more of that. So, maybe you went there when it wasn't ornamental, but it looks like they're starting to process that.
And ornate in the sense of when you go to these churches in Rome or all throughout Europe, it's like overload of senses with all of these canvases, all of this gold, all this silver, and the marble is fresh and everything. the chairs, the seats, the pews, there's literally nothing, there's some things that you can make on the walls, but the overall experience is drawing you to this location of reverence, which does have some ornamentation and it's like a reliquary, but
I'm glad you brought that up. So we just talked about the Star of Bethlehem, but what is that main ornamentation? And what is on the spot where Jesus was born?
Yeah, it's like a silver star.
Yeah, and that's where you reverence, which is that's
where the rock is underneath that you touch. I mean, it's just like you go to the Holy Land, you're touching rocks. Now, this is where something happened.
Here's a crazy story. Now, bear with this. I'm going to tell you how the star in the chapel of the Nativity led to World War I.
What?
Yeah.
Ooh la la.
Tell us more, Ryan.
All right.
Say what?
So there, at the time, the Church of the Nativity was under the control of the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire was going through a pretty massive decline financially and economically and societally. And that means that the Russian Empire, who considered themselves the Third Rome and kind of the safeguard of all Christians in Ottoman lands, was pushing on them and starting to take over their territory. So the Russians went to the Ottomans and said, we want to be formally recognized as the protector of all Christians in the Holy Land, which was an honor that had traditionally been afforded to the French and the Franciscans.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, at the time, that star on the spot of the Nativity had a Latin inscription. One of the Orthodox monks stole the star and removed it because they didn't want a Latin claim on that spot.
Wow.
Well, the French took a warship to Constantinople, to the gates of Constantinople, and demanded that they be absolutely recognized as the protector of the sites and the people of the Holy Land. The Russians then completely countered, and they fought a war called the Crimean War, right? And the British jumped in, so it was the British and the French against the Russians trying to eat up the remains of the Ottoman Empire, and it all started over this star.
Wow.
Now, the British and the French pretty badly defeated the Russians and won this war. And that battle, that loss in that war ultimately led to the decline of the Russian Empire, which ultimately led to communism, which ultimately led to a lot of the problems of the 20th century, World War I, with the decline of the Ottoman Empire. So that star, there's so many things from that moment, from that monk stealing that star, that rippled through history, like the fall of Constantinople to the English, the fall and the execution of the Tsars of Russia, World War I, World War II, communism. All of these things emanated from that one stupid monk stealing that star.
How would you like to be that guy?
Oh, he's probably a Theophylactus.
Nice pull.
Man.
That was good.
What a total Theophylactus. That's terrible.
Theophylactus.
Theophylactus, that's right. I never heard that story, man. That's wild.
I'll probably do a podcast on that sometime, or find something and share that. But that's all of the ways that rippled throughout history is one of the most unknown stories, and it's so cool.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, what would have been placed on top of that star? So that star is where Jesus was born. Well, where did Mary put him afterwards?
The manger.
There you go.
There's a manger right behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get to pray there because it was just madhouse in there. It's just a madhouse.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now, there's parts of it. Now, the majority of the manger of Jesus is in Rome. And when we go on our pilgrimage in a few months, which you're all invited, go to Catholic Talk Show /pilgrimage, and you can find out about the pilgrimage we're going on. It makes a great Christmas present. It's at St. Mary Manger, the relic of the Holy Crib where Jesus was laid on the first Christmas.
Wow.
Is in St. Mary Manger, and we're going to that church, so we'll have the opportunity to venerate that relic.
Is it a crib?
It's the wood from the...
Okay,
they
so
call it the Holy Crib.
In that manger.
No, they call it the relic of the Holy Crib, but it is the wood from that manger.
Gotcha. Wow.
You ever see that, Padre?
I did.
Yeah, because there's no wood in that manger. It's just a rock.
Mm-hmm. What was your impression of seeing that?
At St. Mary Manger?
Yes.
It's that church is so overwhelmingly beautiful, and it's gilded by the gold from, the American conquest, and a lot of the gold in that beautiful church. So it's overwhelming, and everything draws your attention to the main altar and these beautiful seraphs and these angels that are accompanying the altar, that then brings your attention to what is underneath the altar in a beautiful area of reverence. And people go down the stairs to spend time in prayer. And in that location is where the crib is. Wow. And it's a beautiful place of great silence and adoration and reflecting in the beauty of God. And I think it's fitting that it would be in the major basilica, Santa Maria Maggiore, because it's a church dedicated to Our Lady, and it's a really fitting place to have that relic for sure.
No fights over them taking that?
Well, this is in Italy. We have better decorum there.
Okay.
It's not the Orthodox and the Latins beefing.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, even not to change the topic, but even at the Holy Sepulchre, there's a bunch of ownership there, and it's all very complicated.
And a lot of that goes back to that star and the conflict that led from that. It really does,
dude. That's crazy.
The status quo, it's crazy. Now, before we get into the last few topics, we've gotten a lot of gifts throughout the year and support, and that's from our supporters and our sponsors of our show. Padre, why don't you tell them about our sponsors?
That's right. We want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Exodus 90, as well as Hallow. Exodus 90 is a great program out there for all men considering taking the next step in their faith journey. With other brothers, they spend 90 days living austerely and praying and performing different acts of penance and austerity. Now, I've done this experience. Cold showers aren't too bad. And praying through Exodus can only give you a greater sense of an impetus to break through the chains of your own life with other brothers, finding greater freedom in the prayer life. We also want to recognize our sponsor, Hallow, a great application that has quickly become the #1 prayer app on the App Store. So be sure to check out Hallow, and there you'll find all these beautiful prayers that they've uploaded, from daily meditations to rosary to scripture, Lectio Divina, and so much more. These young people were inspired by the applications like Calm that are out there, and this helps people calm down and meditate and center their thoughts. Well, this is a great form of meditative prayer in the Catholic tradition that's being driven through an application. Hallow creates a wonderful sense of our Catholic heritage of prayer, and they have just about everything, and they're continuing to expand their product as time goes on. So be sure to check them out. And if you do, visit their website and use the promo Catholic Talk Show, and you'll get premium content for 30 days. And by using that, you'll be able to explore their full capacity of what they're offering. So be sure to check out Hallow, a great app for prayer.
All right. Thanks for that, Padre.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate it. Appreciate our sponsors. So that's a great gift to us. And all those sponsors are giving you guys great gifts. So make sure you take advantage of that. Now, one of my favorite things of Christmas is setting up the nativity scene. Do you do the nativity scene at your parish?
Oh yeah,
yeah. What's it like?
This will be my first time setting it up.
Oh,
but generous parishioner gave us a beautiful Fontanini scent of the nativity scene.
What's a Fontanini set?
It's an Italian. It's an Italian sculptor that it's a pretty famous nativity scene that's in a number of churches around the country. Okay. My first parish at Santa Maria del Mar, we had one of those sets, and it's one of the most beautiful ones. And the child Jesus is just so precious, and really, really special. I think of Padre Pio, processing around his church with the baby Jesus during the Christmas homily, showing people, and just the convicted look in his eyes as he was expressing the gift of this child is something that has burnt into my memory.
When I was really young, I always tried to be extra quiet at Christmas Eve Mass, because I thought the baby Jesus was sleeping in there, because they would bring him in there, and I was too short to see over everyone. And they bring him in there, and they put him in there, inside the church, because it's now, Christmas, and the baby Jesus is in there. And I'm like, you guys are being so loud. You're going to wake him up. What are you doing? It's baby Jesus. Come on, man. Do you know where the tradition of nativity scene start with?
Oh, St. Francis of Assisi.
St. Francis of Assisi.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. First nativity scene, yeah.
The first nativity scene was set up by St. Francis of Assisi in 1223 because he wanted to place an emphasis of Christmas on the worship of Christ instead of gift giving and materialism. Even back then, the church was fighting this urge towards secularism, right, and partying, whatever. So he really wanted to bring history and the nativity to people's to their mind, and he set up, it was a living nativity scene with actual, live people and animals, and caused a little bit of consternation at first, but then the Pope Honorius III, who we've talked about on Best Pope episodes, said, gave the blessing for the exhibit, and from there, it spread like wildfire, and within 100 years, every single church in Italy had a nativity scene at Christmas time.
Beautiful.
There's a lady in my neighborhood in Nocatee, in Ponte Vedra, Florida, and she has 150 nativity scenes from all around the world where she's traveled and where she's visited. She has bought a nativity scene, and she has a display every single Christmas to share, of her travels and these various depictions of the nativity. But what a beautiful tradition. I recall this one gentleman that I know, those little houses that people set up at Christmas, and they decorate the streets with cotton and like snow, and like they put all the lights up. Well, he had this huge table in this one room, and he set up all of this whole city. And then at the very center of it, put this beautiful nativity scene and had a train running around it and everything.
I don't think that's historically accurate.
I think the train was
The
there.
train, yeah.
It was?
Boss, the train.
Was that Quirinius's or Herod's train?
It was Quirinius's, of course.
It's got to be.
Well, I mean, how else are you going to run a census?
There's the astrology that goes into it.
Herod was too worried about the aqueducts and, running water and all that stuff.
That's as one would be when one is a Herodian, right?
Herodian.
I mean, everyone knows that. All right, well, so Christmas is awesome, right? And
Love it.
Who wants Christmas to end? No one.
Never.
No. It should be Christmas in our heart all year long, Padre. But when does Christmas actually end? Because it certainly is not December 26th, right?
Clearly.
Is it an octave? 8 days?
On the 12th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me.
Something.
Well, for Vatican II priests.
25 days.
So there's a few different ways that people end or say Christmas ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are on the old calendar. So 12 days of Christmas goes up to Epiphany.
Yep, but then you could extend it to
Presentation.
baptism of John the Baptist.
That is when, according to the USCCB and our liturgical schedule, Christmas ends on January 12th for the baptism, the Feast of the Baptism. The 12 days of Christmas end on, go up to Epiphany. And it used to be called Epiphany Tide, the 12 days of Christmas.
Yeah. So the baptism of who?
And then
Jesus.
I thought he was
liturgy.
presented in the
Well, see, now that is traditionally when Christmas ended according to the old calendar, which is on Candlemas.
Oh.
That was his presentation at the temple, February 2nd.
Yeah, I thought he was baptized when he was an adult with John the Baptist.
They didn't do infant baptism back then.
Right. So, but that's the end of Christmas. Is that particular feast
day is his baptism.
The Feast of the Baptism.
That's weird.
But Epiphany is recalled, because it's the 12 days of Christmas. Then so we're celebrating within that sense, and then the whole week of Epiphany that leads up to that following week, which is the baptism by John
which would have been Christmas tide, then Epiphany tide after Epiphany.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nice.
So there was distinction there between Christmastide and
but still tied
Epiphany.
together.
Yeah.
But then
Tied together.
Tied. Hey.
Like a boat.
Flip. Yeah, but Candlemas, that's something that really doesn't get enough devotion because it really does. According to the Jewish tradition, a woman would be purified after childbirth after 40 days and present herself to the temple to become ritually clean again because of the blood involved in birth and the Jewish aversion to blood in a sacramental sense, right?
Gotcha.
So she would have taken the baby Jesus to the temple on 40 days after birth, so 40 days after December 25th is February 2nd or
2nd,
Candlemas.
Which not a lot of parishes celebrate. And last year at Resurrection, I did, and it was beautiful. Yeah,
Just
and
put a
people
bunch of
loved it.
candles around.
Yeah, we did like a little procession,
Blessing of the candles.
blessing of the candles.
Nice.
Yeah. It was nice. Simple. I mean, it's simple, but it's beautiful. And had a moment of silence and thought, kind of guided a meditation, and it was beautiful.
So you get the Advent. You kind of you go into some form of light penitential, prayerful time, the expectation of Christ coming, obviously Christmas Mass. Now you're in Christmas for 12 days. You're feasting for 12 days.
Absolutely.
And some of the most beautiful feast days in the church are during that period of time.
Yeah, there's
Saint Stephen, the Holy Innocents, Saint John,
Joseph or the Holy Family.
Holy Family is in that period of time as
Pope
well.
Sylvester.
Yeah, the feast of Mary, Mother of the Universe, Mary, Queen of the
So
Universe.
they just jam a bunch of
Mother of
feast
God.
days in
Look,
there.
that is sweeps week for the church, man.
Yeah,
Those
it's
are
powerful,
some-
and it's solemnities too. High feast days, obligatory feast days, and
That's awesome.
So I'm of the opinion more Christmas can't be bad. Just push it out to February 2nd. Leave your tree up till then. It'll be fine. No one's gonna judge you. Just say, look.
Just make sure you water it, especially if it's real.
Yeah, just say, look, I'm a traditional Catholic. So if you leave your tree up and your decorations up and you can't get around to it, just say, I'm leaving my decorations up according to the old calendar.
Father Tetlow left up his Christmas tree till Lent when you're like, buddy, we got to get that down. But it wasn't any type of observance. It was just,
Yeah, with kids, they're getting older now and they can actually help us. But before it was kind of the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, I should have it up. Great, yeah, yeah, that's why I have it up. Yeah,
yeah. I leave up my decorations according to the old calendar. So quit judging me. All right, man. Well, this was a good year of the Catholic Talk
fabulous
Show.
year.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. You with your kids and you with your lonely priest life.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited about. I'm excited about celebrating it with family. Certainly with some brother priests as well. We're going to be bringing in a little bit of that Christmas spirit together during the days. And, being with my parish for the first time, which I'm very excited about.
Very special.
Very special.
Very special.
It's a very special.
One of these years, there's an ancient Arabic Christmas hymn that I absolutely love listening to every single year.
Arabic or Aramaic?
Arabic.
Oh, really?
And I want to learn it and sing it at midnight mass, but it's challenging. But it talks about the Theotokos, and you would love it. I'll share that with you.
Awesome, thank you.
But one of these years I'm going to prepare that and sing that by candlelight at the midnight mass preceding the celebration of the liturgy. One of these years.
Yeah, one of the greatest miracles in the history of the world. The greatest miracle of the history of the world.
So everyone out there going to Christmas Mass, be nice to the Creasters. Look, they only come twice a year. Give them a good example. Maybe they'll come back a little bit more. No reason to be mad at them unless they steal your parking spot in your regular pew, if that's a big thing for you.
Creasters.
And from everybody here at the Catholic Talk Show, Howard, Ryan,
Kyle,
Billy, everybody.
Andrew, Alana. I mean, there's Joanna. There's so many people who help us with the show. My wife, who allows me to sneak away and watches
My wife, my
takes
kids
on so much
who-
burden when I'm gone.
Yeah.
Thanks for all of them. And
And we want to wish you a very, very Merry Christmas. And we'll see you in the year 2020.
Amen.